Right. So we love to go deep. And today we're diving into some seriously potent material. I know you're no stranger to the world of demonology, but are you ready to go deep into the Lesser Key of Solomon?
Always ready for a deep dive into the Lesser Key.
So we're working from a digital copy from Project Gutenberg.
Okay.
It's an early 20th century edition.
Mm-hmm.
But it's based on these ancient manuscripts that have been, passed down and copied and recopied over time.
Yeah.
So think of this as like a masterclass in the Lesser Key of Solomon. We're not just going to like go over the rituals and the symbols.
Right.
We really want to understand how this has transformed over time, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating to see how a grimoire like this, with its roots in ancient times, still resonates in the modern occult world. And it's really not just about, conjuring demons, as people might think. It's really a lens through which we can understand the evolution of magical thought itself.
Exactly. Like how have ideas about magic changed over time, and how is that reflected in this book? But to kind of set the stage here, let's break down the structure of this thing a little bit. So the Lesser Key is actually part of a larger text, right?
Yes.
Called the Lemegeton,
Mm-hmm.
which is divided into 5 books.
Yeah.
And we can kind of think of these like chapters, right?
Yes.
In this ancient textbook of magic.
Yeah.
And each one kind of dives into a different aspect of what was attributed to King Solomon's, magical system.
Right. And it's really a complex system that hints at a hierarchy of spirits and this ancient understanding of how the cosmos worked.
Okay. So we've got the Goetia, which is, I think that's the one everyone knows, right?
Yeah.
That's the book of the 72 infamous spirits.
Yeah.
But then we have Thurgia Goetia, which deals with spirits of both good and evil. So we got some good guys, some bad guys in there. We've got Ars Paulina. This explores planetary spirits and the zodiac. Then there's Ars Almadel, which focuses on the spirits that rule the 4 altitudes. And then finally there's Ars Nova, which is also known as Notaria. And this contains prayers and divine notes attributed to Solomon. I mean, it really is like a whole curriculum if you wanted to get a degree in, demonology back in the day.
I mean, the organization is not random either. It reflects a hierarchy of spirits that mirrors how ancient civilizations viewed the universe. You have, like, the kings and princes of hell at the top, and then entities with more specialized powers as you move down. So it's very structured.
Okay, so this wasn't just some haphazard collection of spells.
No.
There was like a system to it, a framework for understanding and interacting with these forces.
Precisely. And I think it suggests a worldview where magic wasn't just about summoning demons. It was really a way to tap into the interconnectedness of this celestial, terrestrial, and infernal.
Yeah, like a way to understand how these different realms or forces influence each other, right?
Exactly.
Now, I have a question for you. So I know, like, I think we're all drawn to the Goetia, right? It's like the A-list of demonology.
Right.
But if you were like a practicing magician back then, right?
Right.
What do you think, which of these books would have been the most sought after?
That's a good question. The Goetia might be the most, notorious, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think people seeking a more comprehensive approach to magic, they might have been drawn to those other books. Each offers a different facet of this really complex system. Like, it's almost like choosing a specialization within, the broader field of magic.
Yeah, right.
Like, you want to focus on planetary magic. Okay, Ars Paulina.
Yeah.
You want to work with spirits of the 4 altitudes. Art Almadel.
Yeah. Like, what's your magical focus?
Exactly.
I know we can't resist delving into the Goetia.
Of course not.
Right, with its cast of characters. It's like a who's who of demonology, right?
Good.
And there's these vivid descriptions of these 72 spirits, each with their own unique powers and, dare I say, personalities.
Oh, yeah. And these descriptions weren't just creative writing. These were meant to be taken literally as guides to understanding and interacting with these entities. And remember, for the people of that time, these spirits were real forces to be reckoned with, not just, figments of the imagination.
No, and they got very specific too, right? Like, we're talking appearances, seals, rituals, even the offerings that they preferred. It's like an ancient demonic etiquette guide.
Yeah, and each spirit had a specific, office or area influence. Some could grant invisibility, others knowledge of the arts and sciences. Some could even influence love and discord. So it really reflects the range of desires and ambitions that those practicing this magic might have had.
Okay, so let's meet a few of these A-listers.
Okay.
First up, we have Baal,
Mm-hmm.
a shape-shifting king offering the power of invisibility. I mean, imagine the possibilities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the imagery is so evocative. Baal could appear as a cat, a toad, or even a man, sometimes all three forms at
Oh,
once.
that's some serious shape-shifting.
Yeah.
Then there's Paimon, a crowned king riding a dromedary, no less,
Mm-hmm.
with a whole entourage of spirits playing trumpets and cymbals, very obedient to Lucifer, but also a king of the arts and sciences,
Hmm.
like revealing hidden knowledge and all this kind of stuff.
And think about that. This grimoire is presenting a hierarchy where even powerful figures like Paimon answer to, like someone even higher.
Right.
It speaks volumes about the complex power dynamics.
Within this spiritual realm.
Exactly.
Okay, last but not least, we have Belith, another king, but this one is furious. He loves music. He rides a pale horse, trumpets blaring,
Yeah.
and you need a hazel wand and a triangle outside the magic circle to command him.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess with Belith.
Yeah, Bolith was not to be messed with.
No.
The text really emphasizes treating him with respect, even calls him courteous despite his, furious nature. It really highlights that, balance of power and respect that was needed in this form of magic.
And his specialty, love, of course.
Of course.
He could ignite love in anyone until the magician's desire was fulfilled. I mean, wow.
I know. These descriptions are so vivid. It's easy to see how they capture the imaginations of practitioners and scholars, for centuries.
Absolutely.
But beyond, those fantastical elements, there are some deeper ethical considerations woven into the lesser key.
Exactly. Like the preface actually presents magic as the highest divine knowledge.
Yes.
But then warns against negromancy and the black art.
Yes.
So it's like they're acknowledging that there's a potential for misuse.
Yeah, and there's this tension between the seemingly, evil aims of magic, like to destroy our enemies, but then the text tries to reframe them, right? Arguing that destroying enemies is actually about, compassion, recognizing the illusion of duality. It's a very complex ethical framework. I'd be curious to know how it resonates with you.
Yeah, it's a perspective that definitely challenges modern sensibilities, you know.
Yes.
But it provides a glimpse into the moral complexities of magic,
Yeah.
as understood in that time.
Absolutely. And then there's the prefaces, surprisingly materialist view.
Yeah.
Describing spirits as, portions of the brain and rituals as, physiological experiments.
Yeah.
So does that diminish their power, or does it offer, a new understanding of how magic might work?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. It really makes you wonder if they were onto something about, the mind's power.
Right.
Or if this was an attempt to just, rationalize what seems supernatural.
Right.
But either way, it's a perspective that really makes you think.
And it's remarkable, right, how the lesser key tries to kind of, reconcile these seemingly contradictory views on magic. But I think it would be good to shift our focus a little bit to how this text has transformed over time. I mean, it's had this, fascinating journey, through different cultures and eras, evolving and adapting as it was copied, translated, and interpreted.
It's like that game of telephone, but played across centuries.
Exactly. And the text even mentions that the original manuscripts were in Chaldee and Hebrew, and later, translated into Greek, then Latin, and then, eventually into other languages. So even in Solomon's, supposed time, we're already talking about copies of copies.
Yeah. And anyone who's played telephone knows how things can get twisted along the way. So how much of the lesser key that we have today is a faithful representation of those, original teachings,
Mm-hmm.
and how much has been shaped by, those who came after? It's a
Yeah.
question that, kind of hangs over any ancient text.
Oh, absolutely. We're not just reading words on a page. We're really engaging with this chain of transmission that spans centuries, and each link, right, as its own unique imprint.
It's like a palimpsest, right?
Yes.
With layers of meaning and interpretation built on top of each other.
Exactly. And these transformations weren't just linguistic, right? They were also
No.
cultural. So as the lesser key spread, it encountered different magical traditions, different religious beliefs, different philosophical perspectives. It had to adapt, right, to survive.
So it wasn't just a matter of, translating the words. It was reconciling these different worldviews.
Precisely. And this process of cultural adaptation, it continues even today, right?
Yeah.
If you think about the influence of modern occultism and esoteric movements on the lesser key's legacy, there's so many interpretations and adaptations out there now.
Yeah. It really speaks to the enduring power and adaptability of this text.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, how would a modern magician interpret those Goetia demons compared to someone practicing these rituals centuries ago?
Oh, I'm sure their understanding would be vastly different
Mm.
because the cultural context, plays such a huge role in how these spirits are perceived and interacted with. And it's not just, the demons themselves that have been, reinterpreted. The rituals, the symbols, even like the ethical framework of the lesser key are subject to ongoing transformation,
Mm.
you know?
Speaking of symbols, there's one in particular that I find really intriguing, and that's the Secret Seal of Solomon.
Yeah.
The imagery is so powerful. And it just seems to like connect to something older, more primal than what's immediately apparent in the text.
I know exactly what you mean. Like those hieroglyphics, the figures with their hands raised in like adoration.
Right.
It resonates with this sense of ancient worship, something like predating even Solomon.
Yeah, like tapping into like a universal language
Mm-hmm.
of ritual and power,
Yeah.
right? And the text claims that the seal is incredibly powerful, right? Granting, all sorts of abilities from like winning battles to gaining love, even protection from harm. It's like a magical Swiss Army knife.
But it's the creation process, right? That I find most fascinating. It has to be made by someone who is, you know, clean both inwardly and outwardly,
Hmm.
having fasted and prayed for forgiveness, created on a specific day at a specific time under a specific moon phase. And it has to be written on virgin parchment with the blood of a black cock that's never trode hen. I mean, talk about like specific instructions.
Right. It's a recipe that feels both ancient and strangely modern at the same time.
Yeah.
The level of like detail.
Yeah.
The blend of like mundane and exotic ingredients, it's all so meticulously laid out.
And then there's, the ingredients used to perfume the seal, alum, raisins dried in the sun, dates, cedar, and lignum aloes. It's this mix that seems almost like arbitrary. But
Yeah.
I'm sure each element held a very specific, like, symbolic meaning for those practicing this magic.
Right. Like the use of blood, for example, has long been associated with sacrifice and like
Yeah.
invoking power. Right.
Yes.
And the specific ingredients for the perfume, I'm sure they held, astrological or elemental correspondences. Everything was like interconnected. Right.
Exactly. I mean, even, the smallest details could hold, like, immense significance. But what's really remarkable is that despite, the centuries that have passed, the Lesser Key, with its, like, potent imagery and complex rituals, it continues to, like, inspire awe and fascination.
Yeah.
It speaks to that enduring human desire to try to understand these unseen forces that shape our world.
And that desire hasn't faded over time. If anything, it seems to have like intensified with like, this resurgence of interest in the occult and esoteric traditions.
Yeah.
People are still drawn to these mysteries.
Absolutely. The Lesser Key acts as like a bridge between those ancient beliefs and our modern search for meaning. It reminds us that magic, in all its forms, right, is really a reflection of like our deepest hopes, fears, and desires. It's a way of engaging with the unknown and trying to make sense of, our place in the cosmos.
It's a conversation that like spans centuries.
Huh.
I mean, what aspects of the Lesser Key have resonated most with you? What questions or, insights has this exploration sparked for you? We'd love to hear your thoughts.